Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at USAGlobalTV.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome. It's so nice to have you here with us today. This is USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and we're thrilled to be bringing another episode, which is way past the 12 we started with. I think we're up to episode 14 of Food and Our Emotions. We're going to be talking about a kosher diet. What is it? Especially it is the time of year when many are observing the Jewish holidays. So we're all about education and providing that type of content. So let's welcome the genius who has all the information. It's our longevity expert, Mr. Red.olaughlin. Hello.
Howdy, Dr. JACALYN. Again, you're making me blush a little bit, but anyway, it's one of those things. We hear the term kosher, halal, a number of things that we know kind of what they are, but do we really and truly know what it is and what it means? If I said, Dr. JACALYN, what's kosher? What does that mean to you?
To me, I'm putting myself out there. I think it means the food has been blessed by a rabbi.
Okay. So if it wasn't blessed, then it wouldn't be kosher?
I'm not sure. I don't win anything today, do I?
Well, when I was doing my research on this one, I didn't find anything about being the blessing. It seems like that the kosher, and I'm going to call it a diet because it's really a lifestyle. It's a religious dietary regimen more than anything else, and adheres to various laws which are set down in the Jewish people within their Torah and the things that they're taught to do. These dietary practices are what they choose to follow, and it's basically an adherence to certain kinds of things. In other words, the kosher in and of itself means that there's three different things. You have the approval or permissible level of foods that you can eat. You have those that are forbidden, and then you have kind of the neutral ones in between. And so it's just not what the foods are. So obviously the first part is the choice, but the choice, when you start looking at, vegetables and fruits, not a big deal. There's some minor things there, but then you have dairy and you have animal. Well, part of the process in kosher is you never mix those two. So the kosher ensures that if you're eating that and that it's certified as such, that everything that was used to process the dairy, the utensils, the cookware, the dishware, everything is totally separate, distinct, and not duplicated in any way, shape, or form with any of the meat dishes that are allowed. So you have meat that is prepared a certain way. You have dairy that's prepared a certain way, but it's done in two different parts of the kitchen, two completely separate, distinct sets of equipment that's used on it. So from that perspective, then that ensures a certain level of adherence to the dietary laws that are outlined in the Torah. Does that sort of make sense, Dr. JACALYN?
Yes, it does. And that was something I wasn't aware of. So again, thanks for the education.
Yeah, and part of the animal preparation is that you want to minimize the level of pain that's associated with the slaughtering of the animal. Very similar in halal food cooking and preparation. There are certain things that are allowed in the Islamic part of it, there are certain ritual prayers that are said during the slaughter, but in the kosher preparation, not necessarily the same level of that. So when I'm looking at the kosher, there's a very strict preparation and inspection process that if food is going to be identified as kosher, it's basically going to say the food handling, the food preparation, the food serving, safety standards are much higher than it would be for other kinds of foods that we typically catch in a restaurant. And the same thing when it's labeled as kosher, it gives people that feeling, okay, it meets my dietary restrictions. It's a suitable food for my preference. So people who are adhering to a kosher diet may find in some places it's challenging, but if it says kosher on it, then you can rest assured it's kosher, because that's the whole process of making sure that the ingredient sourcing, the kitchen organization, the preparation, everything follows certain guidelines. And when it follows that guidelines, then you have that assurance that things are actually working. So from that perspective, if you were going to a restaurant and you knew that it served kosher food and you had somebody there with you that wanted that kind of food, then they would feel very comfortable knowing that when they ordered something off of the menu that was in fact kosher, it would meet their minimum requirements as if they were preparing it themselves at home.
Thanks, Red. So that would be the same principle then if you go into your grocery store and there's an aisle of kosher foods that they were prepared in a certain way.
Yeah. In order to get that word kosher on the label, the requirements for the inspection, for the labeling, for all that has to meet certain very, very strict requirements in order for that word to go on it. Now, the word organic to go on something, maybe not so. Yeah, it means certain things, but sometimes the outside label on a product does not necessarily agree with what's on the inside of the product. It's just that our marketing allowances, the restrictions, I guess is probably a better word, is not necessarily all that we believe it to be. So if it says no salt added, well, and you have something that's very salty to begin with, it's, well, why did they put that on there? Because they think it might sell. Or no sugar added. Well, maybe because of the nature of the food. The labels on the outside, I generally don't trust as much as I do. Turn it over, and I look at the back. What's in it? The other day my wife picked up a salted caramel that we use for ice cream. It's a topping. And I looked at it and it had 20 different items in there. It wasn't the same brand that I buy. And I went back to the store. I picked up the one that I buy and had like 8 ingredients in it. And none of them were something that I would be concerned about. Yeah, it's sugar. There's no doubt about that. But I don't need all the preservatives. I don't need all of the artificial colorings. I don't need all of the antibiotics, anything else that might be added to something. So if I know I get a kosher meat, then I don't worry about antibiotics. I don't worry about other things that may or may not be in other foods that I buy somewhere else in the store. So there's a certain assurance that I have when I buy that and when I eat it, that I am observing my religious beliefs in that regard.
It's also good to know that if a person is following a kosher lifestyle, that there are restaurants that offer options. I think there are a lot more options in general in different types of food cultures, or at least in the United States.
Yeah, and I mean, I drive around here in our area, our part of Houston, and there are restaurants that are primarily, let's say, Chinatown area. But I drive around somewhere else, I'll see a big halal sign, and okay, and so people are advertising that if they're meeting a certain dietary restriction, that they're putting not only their restaurant's name, but they're putting it out there in the big window, so everybody's aware of it. And for those people who are observing a religious responsibility to follow a kosher diet, to maintain their faith and their connection with their cultural and religious heritage, then that's what they're doing when they go to that restaurant and it says we prepare and serve kosher food. So Now, from our perspective here on the show, one of the things we look at is, are there health benefits? Are there health detriments? And when you start looking at kosher food, because of the intense scrutiny of the preparation, my feeling is, and everything I've read, is that it's going to be as healthy as organic, as healthy as you would expect it to be, because there is a level of extra concern with regard to the preparation. It's just not you throw everything out there and mix this and that and whatever. No, there are some very, very strict enforcement in order to meet that requirement to sell or serve kosher food.
Yeah, it's interesting because I decided to look it up, and it's a misnomer that rabbis bless kosher food. So,
Well, it's part of what we think, but we don't know. And part of the program that we have here, part of USA Global TV and Radio Network, is first awareness and education, but giving you the ability to make better decisions, so that if you're going to go somewhere and it says kosher, you kind of know what it is, or halal, so that when you pick it up, I mean, if I go to the store and I pick up something and it says this particular product was halal processed, okay, fine. I know a little bit more about it than if it just says organic, which can mean a variety of things, but regardless, it's what's on the label. So, but am I looking at the food safety? I think that the food standards are probably as great or greater than anything else that's out there. I don't see anything that would tell me otherwise, that I would have some issue that might not necessarily meet a higher quality level than any other kind of processing for Mediterranean food, Japanese food. It doesn't matter. I think that there are certain things there that are consistent, that are evaluated to a certain standard, and are blessed, to use a word that you used earlier, with the label of kosher. So now, because they don't mix the dairy and the meat product on the same dishes, then you have the ability of somebody who might be, say, lactose intolerant, to find, kosher more suitable because of the separation of the dairy and the meat. So that might be another plus in regard to having a kosher.
that makes sense. There's some people, at least I've known, who they don't want any food touching anything anytime. And if this touches that, I'm not talking about kosher, I'm just talking about in general. If the vegetables touch the main course, that they won't eat it. They want everything on a different plate. The salad has to go on a different plate. I like it all together. I don't care. I can mix it all together and eat it. But there are people, I guess this would be a nice option for them.
Yeah, the touching of things, I think, is one of those little quirks we pick up as kids. For whatever reason, we just, I don't want that because I don't like it that much. It shouldn't touch something else. And I'm sure at some point in time, all of us probably had some little idiosyncrasies until somebody shouted at you, and then all of a sudden you changed your way of doing things. I don't know. But it's interesting how some habits that we have as kids stay with us all our lives, and food is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I taste something that I don't like as a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old, and chances are I'm not going to eat it as an 8, 9, 10-year-old. I'm definitely not going to eat it as a teenager, and it's going to be very difficult as a young adult for me to even begin to think about eating things. Now, what about you, Dr. JACALYN? Is there some foods that you eat nowadays that you never used to eat?
That's a good question. I can tell you there's a lot of foods that I don't eat. That's like the foods I eat are it's very limited, I guess. And it's not always good. I love pizza. And the way I kind of justify it is, if you were to go to your grocer's freezer and pick up a pizza, there's a lot of chemicals and who knows what it is. But if you have a nice pizza that's freshly made, I love that. I know with the cheese and everything, it's bad. I love bagels that are freshly made, not from the freezer. But I do, as a result of working with you on this platform, there's a lot of things that I wasn't eating, like kale and spinach, chickpeas. There's a lot of things I eat now that I wasn't eating before.
But you weren't eating them before because you didn't have them, or something that you
We didn't
didn't.
eat them at home. Like what we
Okay,
ate at home was iceberg lettuce, and I never liked iceberg lettuce. And when I looked into it, I don't think it has any nutritional value. It's mostly water.
you're there's some value there, yes, but it's cheap, it's inexpensive, it looks green, it's on a plate,
Right.
uh, and it's what a lot of people get used to because that's part of the the history of their food choices. But you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have that much fish. Although as a Catholic, we had fish every Friday. That was just there was no no options. That was just the way it was. And I am not a fish person. However, if it doesn't smell like fish, doesn't taste like fish, as I became a young adult, and you go out someplace and that's what they were serving, don't want it. Got to eat it because I'm in front of a bunch of people. And I found out that if the fish doesn't taste like fish, doesn't smell like fish, then generally speaking, it tastes pretty good. And there's all sorts of different textures in between. So fish is something that I prepare, I eat a lot more now than I ever did in my life. But I'm very, very picky about what it smells like and what it tastes like. So if I'm eating something that has a fishy something to it, generally speaking, that's not what I want. Especially if it's something I'm buying, and you pick it up, you look at it, and it has a definite aroma that you is unpleasant. Why buy it? Why eat it? That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm not a meat eater unless it's organic ground meat, and then I'll have it once every 2 weeks or something. But I love fish, but to be honest with you, there's been so many changes in my life in the last however long that I'm not cooking, and I need to get back into it, but it always seems like, like today I haven't eaten anything. I'm sure you haven't eaten anything. And all I keep thinking is I really want to order a bagel sandwich. And I know that's not the best thing to order, but
Well, it's 10:16 in the morning here at my time, and generally speaking, I probably won't have my first meal until around 3 or 4 o'clock, maybe later. That's just part of that intermittent fasting where I will do 15, 18 hours. And then from say 4 o'clock, I might have a main meal. If I do, then chances are I may not have anything else later on in the evening. But if I do, it might be some nuts or might be something else that's not filling, but just kind of meets that little need to chew on something. But I try to eat one meal a day. It works out most of the time. If I go to a luncheon, I think tomorrow I have a luncheon, military luncheon. I know that I'll be eating earlier in the day, 11:30 probably. Now, will I have a meal later in the evening? Chances are I probably will, but there's some days because of other things that are scheduled, I don't. But I try to stay with the one meal a day, and most of the time I'm pretty successful. But
yeah.
can one meal a day be pizza? Well, believe it or not, pizza is one of the things I do not eat. For whatever reason, I love Italian food, but I have never found pizza that I have enjoyed. So I just avoid it. I can't tell you why. Since a teenager, I've bitten into a couple of them. I just don't. It's the texture, it's the taste, it's whatever it may happen to be. But I see there are people who just scarf them down left and right. I know when I lived in Germany for a couple of years at the end of the 90s, and I would go down to Italy. I try to do it every other month or so, and I'd pig out on spaghetti because I love pasta, bread, and it wasn't part of my dietary regimen at the time. I was on Atkins diet, which meant no carbs, and it was pretty easy to stay under 10 grams of carbs a day. I had no problem at all. I would go down there and I'd pig out on carbs. It just that was what it was. So years later, my wife and I and her sister and her husband were over there, and I think one of their sons came in. And for the first couple of days, I stayed, breakfast, lunch, and dinner with pretty much pasta, primarily spaghetti. Well, it didn't take them very long at all, about 3 or 4 days, and they couldn't handle pasta, pizza, or whatever on a consistent basis. Uh, don't ask me why, but it wasn't something that they could handle every single meal. And there are some people like that. I mean, there are some times that I can eat a hamburger every meal forever, but there's sometimes I just want a little difference. Now, with this kosher part of this thing, I know my expectation for meeting my religious obligations are there. But if I were had that same option with other kinds of foods. And I wanted to make sure now, for my religious upbringing, uh, if it's Friday, I don't eat, any meat. That's just the way it is. But sometimes I don't want to have fish for whatever reason, so I may have a grilled cheese sandwich, and that still meets the requirement for that particular Friday, no meat. But it just sort of depends. I mean, there are certain things. I don't know if you do have certain restrictions on your dietary choices, but for me, even today, if it's Friday, it's a fish day. That's the way it is. That's my habit since I was as far back as I can even remember.
Yes, and we do have a comment from one of our team members here, Keith Sultayanis. Hello, Keith, joining us from LA. Even Chicago deep dish pizza you don't like, it's like a casserole. I love Chicago deep dish pizza. And there was a chain, I don't know if it's still in business or not, but that's what they specialize in. Can't get any better than that. I'm totally with you, Keith. I don't know what's up with Red with the pizza, but I know that Red, you love ice cream. You make your own ice cream, and I haven't had ice cream in years. So I would say that my dietary restrictions are because I have ulcerative colitis. So I'm in remission, but there's a lot of things I don't eat just because I know it's not good for me. So caffeine, no, haven't had it. Don't drink it. One of the things I love, I'm not a paid spokesperson, so I'm not going to show it, but it's in this bottle. If you only knew what was in this bottle, it's caffeine free and it's sugar free and it's got a red color. It is absolutely delicious. And then for dairy, I stay away from dairy, like ice cream. I used to love, because we have a place on an island and they specialize, I think there's 5 ice cream places, and they have that soft serve. It's like the twist, and then they roll it in the jimmies, which there can't be anything good about that. They call them sprinkles, but I used to love that. But that's been years and years that I haven't had it.
Well, when I was living in Europe, most of the time you get water over there doesn't have ice in it. It's just plain water. So you get water in a bottle. Well, if you're not looking at the label, sometimes the water comes out and it has gas in it. It's a, what do you want to call it? Carbonated water. And I had a very, very, very difficult time, months trying to avoid it. And when I taste it, I'd sit there and I'd shake it up, trying to get rid of the gas. And then it dawned on me many months into this process that what I'm tasting is not the carbonation. I'm tasting all the minerals that are in there. And that's the part that was foreign to my tongue. Just like you try to drink wine and it's dry. That's not the way you start out. You start out with a sweet wine, and then you go to something not so sweet, and then something not so sweet, and you eventually work your way into dry. Well, over a period of months, I was able to develop a habit for preferring carbonated water. And nowadays, when I want to relax and I want something, I'll sit down there and I have, a bottle of carbonated water just by itself, and I really and truly enjoy it. I find that we used to go out and we get the really tall bottle of carbonated water, and that was what we had with our lunch. It was just kind of a standard thing at that time, almost like having a beer in a sense. And even beers have so many different flavors that are there. But I acquired the taste over time, just like you acquire a taste for other things over time.
Right.
Some things are icky to look at, but they taste good. Snails. I had my
Never
first,
had
I had my first snail in Hong Kong because that was what everybody else at the table was having. Oh, come on, come on, come on. And you sort of succumb. But, sometimes I'm in Korea and, they're with their kimchi and other things, and it just doesn't look like something that I should be putting in my mouth. So, I still have visual standards. I know one of the things that absolutely, I'm not saying appalling, but they had this fried silkworm, boiled silkworm larvae, and they had these almost like little cups that you might get popcorn in or nuts or something. And people sit there and they just gobble them down. I remember the first time I ate one, it tasted like I was eating a boiled cockroach. It just, the wings and everything got stuck in your teeth. And it's just, there are some things that, I don't mind trying if they don't look too bad, but if it looks bad, smells bad, and it tastes bad, that's the last time I'm trying that one. But we're on kosher here today and trying to keep us a little bit on that particular topic. Why would people eat kosher? What would you think?
part
other,
of their yeah, part of the religious belief. That's part of the it's in their family. It's generational,
yeah.
and maybe also they care about how the animals are killed. That's important.
Mhm. And if you grew up eating it, and whether you're Orthodox or not, it doesn't matter. If that's what you grew up eating, then that's part of what you have. It may be your personal religious conviction that goes a long ways with some people. Um, and sometimes you have friends that come over, and if they have a certain expectation that the host, you are preparing things in a certain way, or you're buying things in a certain way and making sure that you keep the separation there in the kitchen with all the utensils and everything else, then you can you can have people over to eat, because you observe their religious beliefs. You might have some people with some dairy allergies or some lactose intolerance, and they want to be assured that I'm not going to have a problem with that. So from that perspective, okay. Um, you have the supervision of the food, the inspection, all of the stuff that comes with somebody on site that gives their blessing, for lack of a better word. That means it's fit to eat. That it's going to meet the requirements that you had coming in. Some people are vegans. They don't want to eat anything with meat in it. Well, if you're concerned about the animal's welfare, you want to make sure that it's processed in a not a spiritual way, but certainly that minimizes the the suffering the animal has. There are certain kinds of things that can be assured with the way that the animal was killed humanely and as quickly as possible, and that is totally different than a lot of factory farming and industrial slaughterhouses and things, and that might be a meaning, say, well, I don't like the way they do this, but because this particular process is different, I will eat kosher meat, but I may not eat something else. Uh, and so, if you have a vegetarian lifestyle, obviously there are things that are there that the kosher meals meet a lot of the requirements that are in there. And so that might be one. You might have something that you might have, let's say halal. We talked about that. Well, there are some similarities and there's some differences. Halal foods, they don't, kosher food, you can have alcohol. Halal food, no. So there are very strict differences between the two. So the traditions that you have from your religious and your moral upbringing, your family, your celebrations, any of those day-to-day things, there are a lot of things that you can observe. And for those people who really and truly want to keep the Sabbath, so to speak, that the Jewish dietary laws are upheld because they are what you were taught when you start eating the kosher food. It makes sense that not makes sense. It means that you are eating within the restrictions that are dictated by your religion. So I think there's a lot of reasons why people definitely do eat kosher, whether they're Jewish or not.
Red, great points. This area that I'm in now, it has a high population of Orthodox Jewish people, and I really admire them in so many ways because they go to temple. I don't know if it's every day, quite frequently, but it's very hot here. It's in the 90s, and they're completely dressed and long sleeves and long pants and whole families, and they're walking the entire distance, and it's hot out, and you never see anyone complaining or sweating. And I really admire that type of dedication. I really do.
There are so many things out there that we do because our parents did it. Uh, we have friends that do it because that's who we associated with when we were growing up, whether it be in school or organizations or whatever it may happen to be. And then all of a sudden you start associating, whether like me, I was in the military and been pretty much all over the world. And it's, well, that's a little different. That's a little different. And you have your belief systems, you have everything in there, and you try your best to maintain whatever you can. But when you see that word kosher on the outside of the label, that gives you that warm feeling on the inside that, okay, I can have that and I have no problem to worry about. So I think that is a major reason that some people can feel, okay, I'm meeting my moral responsibilities for maintaining my faith in that regard. And I think that's an extremely valid reason why I would, if I were Jewish and I wanted to maintain that particular lifestyle of certain dietary restrictions with regard to the way the meat was selected, the way the meat was processed and served, then yeah, then I would feel very good about myself and what was there. Now, I'm sure there's probably a lot of religious people who I don't care. It's just, it's what it is. They no longer have that overwhelming demand on their life to meet certain requirements, whether it be with food or other things. So I think in the regard to the kosher food, I think it's a definitely two thumbs up. There's no doubt in my mind about that. There's the ability to rest assured, regardless of where you're at in the world, if it says kosher on the label and you're buying something, that it meets the requirements that you want. And I think that's a major plus for kosher food.
Excellent. Well, great work as always, Red. I appreciate it. Of course, I learned something again about rabbis not blessing the food. So we actually can close out a few minutes early if you'd like, or maybe like to tell us about some of the work you're going to be doing on Talking Heads. You've got a 6th segment coming up today. You've also got a great guest for the wise ones.
Well, why don't we start real quickly with the wise ones? Keith Romaine's a friend of mine for many years. He and I have been in the same clubs with Toastmasters. And you asked me a while back, can we get somebody on from Toastmasters? Because it's one of those organizations that I think from somebody who wants to learn to speak better, just like you have programs you offer for people who want to learn how to listen better. Speaking better is something that is forced on some people. I know when I took Toastmasters, I've never had a problem speaking in front of people ever, but I could take a 5-minute topic and cram it into 15 minutes very easily with a certain amount of redundancy and everything else. But to take a 15-minute topic, cram it into 5 minutes, well organized, memorized, where I can do it extemporaneously without notes, that to me was a big plus. And that was something that Toastmasters really and truly taught me how to do, how to organize things in a way that makes sense, how to transition, how to introduce it, how to transition. And so today we're having a distinguished Toastmaster, Keith Romaine, on as our guest. And so he'll have a chance to share some of his insights with regard to, well, what is Toastmasters? What is speaking? What is effective speaking? What does it mean? And what value is there for some people? You can watch some speakers and they have their hands in their pockets and they're jingling coins, and their nervous energy is directed in other ways. But when we're speaking, we're looking at the whole person. Are they hiding behind the podium and reading something? Are they very comfortable with their body language? Are they talking to a group by whatever ways? There's a lot of things there that if you're aware of it, like my kids and my grandkids, the word like, is it like, well, it's like 3 o'clock. Well, is it 3 o'clock or is it like 3 o'clock? And you do that maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row, and all of a sudden they become aware that they're using the word like. In Toastmasters, the word seems to be one of the or We say that we don't even know we're saying something. And if, let's say, a bell goes off every time you say the word then you become aware of something that you were not aware of before. And so it filters in. Our brains are processing things, but our mouth is saying something that we're not aware of. So that's on today's show, The Wise Ones. On Talking Heads, we're continuing our pain management. We're still talking about what kinds of pain hacks can we do? What are some natural things I can do for this kind of pain or that kind of pain? And so we're going to continue going down that road. And that's the plan for today, Dr. JACALYN.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Red. And how do people get in touch with you? And by the way, why don't we bring up your new website? What do you think of that?
Well, if it's available, I've been trying to get in contact with the guy the last couple of days. We were supposed to have a training session for me on how to get my website where I can handle it. And in the process of doing that, he ended up taking somebody. Oh, it looks like it is up.
It's
He's
up. I just showed it the other day on one of our shows. So
And
so
so I'm now being trained on how I can replace the photos, how I can add my blogs, how I can do things that I need to do. And so that's where I'm at right now, is getting my training for the rest of the month, so that as I want to make changes to the website, I feel comfortable in doing that. And it's something I can't do, then I can go back to the designer and say, but yeah, this is my new website, totally different than what I had before. And I'm in the process of me being trained to maintain it. So thank you very
I,
much for bringing that up. At
yeah.
red.olaughlin.com, it's RED, like the color, O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN. So red, RED, OLAUGHLIN.com. I have not ensured that my banner on this one has my contact information, but red.olaughlin@gmail.com is my preferred email at this point in time. Hopefully, when we get the email set up here on the new site, that my red@red.olaughlin.com will be active again. So anyway, thank you for showing my website. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Here's your contact information right here.
Yeah, red.olaughlin@gmail and red@red.olaughlin.com. So I have access to both of those. I prefer the Gmail. I check it quite often. My Red O'Laughlin site, because of the transition that I got to go through. Click here, click here, click here, do that. I check it once or twice a day, but I do check it every day. But call me on the phone. Love to have a phone call, or just email me, and more than happy to chat with you.
All right. The website looks great. Love the photographs. Well done. As I mentioned, we were just showing it on another show. I was showing everybody who you are and what you're doing. So it's been great fun. We're going to sign off right now. We're coming back with our next show, which is the Corner Bookstore. Oh, you've got an announcement. Yes.
Yes, before, when we talked earlier, you were talking about your kids' book being available only on ebook. Well, tomorrow, you want to tell them about what's available tomorrow and show the
Yes.
picture?
So tomorrow, this children's book will be available in paperback. I know a number of you have been asking about it. It's book number 5 in the Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella. It's Lady Ella Listens in the Baobab National Game Park. And the ladybug down there is actually me. I'm Lady Ella, representing my great niece, Ella, whose picture is in all the books. And then the other animal characters are team members here who are elevated listeners and have taken the course, The Power of Listening. And together we all have quite a journey on learning how to listen, as well as understanding others that we don't, because they look different than we do. How can we communicate with them? So there's always a second message. So that'll be available tomorrow.
It should be available tomorrow. Put it in the system in between our shows today. We had a little problem with covers. Don't ask me why, but it just seems to be a problem that permeates the industry. But regardless, we got it solved, and the book, as I say, that one will become available. Ebook is available right now, and the hardcover book will be available. But I'm not sure about the hardcover book, because of the number of pages in that one. We'll have to go through another company to get that one done. But regardless, the ebook is available today. The paperback will be available tomorrow. And what day is today?
Today is the International Day of Listening. So we'll be having a book launch party on a different date. There was just too much going on, too many shows. So look for that in the next few weeks. We'll get it together. So
Fantastic. I'll see you in literally a couple hours, I guess. My show's at 1:00 Central, 2:00 Eastern, and that's the Wise Ones. And then we'll be back to back with Talking Heads. So have fun with the Corner Bookstore. And I guess I'm going to be on the Corner Bookstore hosting it next week, because it's the first week of the month, I think.
yes, it is. I think it is. Absolutely.
Anyway, I do the Corner Bookstore the first Thursday of the month. And if that happens to be the next time we're talking, then let's see. No,
I don't
it's
think
not.
it is next week. I think it's
28th is a week from today, so it will not be that. It'll be the following one. Anyway, thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Appreciate it very, very much. We'll see you again.
Thank you very much. We're going to hear from our sponsors, and then we'll be back with the Corner Bookstore. Bye, everyone.
Bye now.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Boehm. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Boehm tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at DianeFloydBoehm.com. Visit DianeFloydBoehm.com. That's DianeFloydBoehm.com.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Caruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.